policy is the means by which the federal government adjusts its level of spending to monitor and influence the country's economy. It is used along with the monetary policy, which the central bank uses to influence money supply. These two policies are used to achieve macroeconomic goals in the country. These goals include price stability, employment opportunities, reduction of poverty levels, high and sustainable economic growth, favorable balance of payment, and reduction in the nation's debt profile. Nigeria's potential for growth and poverty reduction is yet to be realized. A key constraint has been the recent conduct of macroeconomics, particularly fiscal and monetary policies. This has led to rising inflation and decline in real incomes. National economic management became a Herculean task as the economy has to contend with volatility of revenue and expenditure. The widespread lack of fiscal discipline was further exacerbated by poor coordination of fiscal policy among the three tiers of government. Also, there is a weak revenue base arising from high marginal tax rate with very narrow tax base, resulting in low tax compliance. As a result of these and other factors, serious macroeconomic imbalances have emerged in Nigeria. A review of these macroeconomic indices shows that inflation accelerated to double-digit levels in 2000 and 2001. It increased from 6.9% to 18.87% respectively. This double-digit inflation continued up to 2005 and decreased to single-digit in 2006 and 2007. In 2008, the inflation rate reverted to double-digit, that is 11.58%, and continued to increase, and in 2010, it was 13.72%, according to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, 2011 records. While the fiscal policy measure FPM 2023 is aimed at addressing issues such as climate change and pollution, its implementation could lead to job losses, reduced consumption, and decreased tax revenue due to reduced importation. Now the question is, are the new fiscal policy measures, FPM, a way out for the Nigerian economy? This is our concern on Policy Focus today as we take a holistic look at our economic fiscal policy. And this is the first part. I am Lydia Odijochi. Welcome to the program. Welcome back. Before we continue on our topic, here is the news update.
Participants of the Senior Executive Course 45 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS Kuru, have departed to 7 countries for their intercontinental study tour. The tour, which is an integral and mandatory aspect of the 10-month academic program curriculum, is aimed at strengthening technological, academical, and trade collaborations in order to enhance economic growth and national development. Some directing staff of the National Institute have this to say.
As you can see, the participants are ready and they are really anxious to embark on this very important intercontinental tour. So we hope and expect, first of all, we will have a journey message to and fro. My study group is going to Thailand, and we expect to explore the variables of the theme, that is industrialization, energy security, and climate change as it concerns Thailand, so that we can get some lessons for Nigeria after a comparative analysis. So the tour, our expectation that it will be a very smooth, very comprehensive, educative, and smooth tour.
While expressing their excitement over the trip, the course participants said the tour is necessary in order to solve the riddles that come with industrialization, energy security, and the cascading effect of climate change.
Well, as I think everyone knows, China is a major superpower now. And for nations that are really thinking of, when we talk of thinking outside the box, China is one of those that is leading the whole world in it. So based on our theme, which is on industrialization, energy security, and climate change.
The study tour, which will last for 1 week, is also an effort of the National Institute in assisting course participants in coming up with critical and strategic policies which will be implemented for national development. Chana Ijoga, reporting for NIPSS Policy TV.
Welcome back. The use of fiscal policy is very paramount in every society, most especially in less developed countries, as a major tool for stabilization and for development to be sporadic. When the government uses government revenue and expenditure policies to regulate and stabilize the economy towards development, the action is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is essentially concerned with manipulating the financial operations of the government with a view to furthering certain economic policy objectives. In other words, it consists of government decisions to vary certain fiscal aggregates such as total government spending and tax revenues, as opposed to some other aspects of public finance which are primarily concerned with the effect of specific government expenditures and taxes. Fiscal policy is majorly measured in terms of government expenditure, tax revenue, government investment, budgeting, and debts. Realistically, fiscal policy is used in gearing the economy towards achieving a variety of economic transformation, such as economic development and growth, price stability, reduction in unemployment, external equilibrium, as well as income redistribution. Fiscal policy fosters economic growth and development through a number of different channels. This includes the macroeconomic as well as microeconomic. The question is, how precisely do these channels work in developing economies? What kind of revenue and expenditure policies should developing countries adopt to help realize these objectives? Earlier this year, President Bola Tinubu set up a committee chaired by former fiscal policy partner Taiwo Oyedele, with experts from both the private and public sectors as members to, among other tasks, find answers and make recommendations towards improving the nation's revenue profile and business environment. The committee presented the quick win report to President Tinubu on fiscal policy and tax reforms. What are the main thrusts and takeaways of that report? To find answers, we sought and got audience with the Special Advisor on Economic Affairs in the Office of the Vice President, Dr. Tokpe Fasua in Abuja, and this was what we brought back. Today, our guest on Policy Focus is the Special Advisor on Economic Affairs in the Office of the Vice President. He is a leading economist, and he is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN. With a PhD in Public Administration and Executive Education courses from the London Business School and Harvard University, Tokpe Fasua is a regular economics and financial markets analyst on television. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Tokpe Fasua, and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you very much, and you're welcome.
What would you say are the main economy policy thrusts of the current administration?
Thank you very much for the question. I'd probably say that it's all well laid out there. The president himself has been reiterating what those are. And you can see that the government, the administration is very serious about a new monetary policy that focuses on monetary policy. The central bank focused on its duty and not, much of delving into other areas like the fiscal space, industrial space, and all of that. So a lot of that has to do with strengthening the activities of the central bank. And on the fiscal side, fiscal discipline is being instituted. And of course, the new administration expects the fiscal sector to kick in properly and do its duty and not leave the duty to the monetary guys to do. And when you talk about fiscal sector, it's all about taxing and spending. Now, that is a simple way of understanding the fiscal sector, but the word tax is actually not a very good word to use. They are more concerned with revenue generation and how that revenue that's generated is spent. That is the core concern. Revenue generation, mobilizing funds in any other way, and of course, how that is allocated to different sectors of the economy. So that's it. And of course, the new administration is also, the Tinubu administration is very much interested in the industrial policy. If you listen to what the president said on Monday last week at the NESG, it was very clear. And of course, he also gave matching orders to say that within 10 years, Nigeria should be looking at having 6 industrial clusters around the country, different, all the geopolitical zones. Also having 6 mega cities, all right? Yes. He said it's possible, and he kind of reviewed all of the aspirations that the government had in mind, moved it a bit closer to say, listen, and what I got from that is, there's a lot of work to be done, and this is the time to get running. There's a lot of work that perhaps one day will come very soon, and we would have to, just as Europe and America and Canada, they are taking our people, probably we would have to say, look, we don't have enough people working where they should. Maybe we should start importing from West African region, from Cameroon and all of that. Say, hey, come to Nigeria, there's a lot happening here. And after that would have happened, of course, I believe that even those who have run away from the country will come back. So that's the kind of vision. You can look at the monetary policy, fiscal policy, a rejig, a lot more discipline, a much higher run rate. And one thing that's very clear, if you look at the fiscal and tax committee that the president put in place, which was one of his first things that he did, and the committee chairman will always tell us that, look, we're not about taxing people. The government, the Tinubu government does not intend to tax people more than they are being taxed, okay? In fact, we're looking to streamlining taxes, ensuring that people don't pay multiple taxes, businesses are not taxed to death, and and even in spite of that, we intend to generate a lot more revenue despite keeping taxes stable.
Okay. President Tinubu set up a committee chaired by former fiscal policy partner Taiwo Oyedele, with experts from both the private and public sectors as members. At the inauguration, President Tinubu said the country cannot continue to tax poverty or production, but focus on returns, income, and consumption. Do you think this committee is capable of solving several fiscal issues we have as a country?
Well, I don't know how many fiscal issues you want them to solve, but they're going to try and solve a few. One of the key fiscal issues is actually revenue, the volumes, in terms of the revenues that we get as a country. Of course, you know that we've been running deficit budget for quite a while, and the committee is interested in seeing how we can, improve revenue generation so that we would have to do less of deficit budgeting. And I think that given what the committee has done so far, they submitted the 30 days report a few days back, and also brought up some quick wins, some reforms across the board that can begin to assist the country to get to that point much quicker. So If it's in terms of generating more revenue, yes, the committee can do that. They don't have to solve all the fiscal problems, minding the fact that every country has its fiscal problems. Like I said, the fiscal problem is revenue generation, fund mobilization, and allocation of those monies. Almost every country has been doing deficit budgets across the world. I can't even tell you any countries doing surplus budgeting at this point, generating more money than they spend. There are a million and one places for every country to spend money. You would never have enough, especially if that economy intends to grow. When you're growing an economy, sometimes you have to invest funds in order to get the growth at the other side. Yeah, and remember that we're coming out from COVID 2020, where in fact, about $100 trillion was spent by every country around the world during COVID, extra. Now, the GDP of every country added up is also around 100 trillion, including the US, maybe at 20 trillion, China at about 18 to 19 trillion, then others trailing, Japan, Germany, UK, India, like that, down to countries like Nigeria, we have about $450 billion. If you add everything up, it comes to about $100 trillion. And that same $100 trillion was spent battling COVID. Remembering the fact that countries like Nigeria, we didn't spend that much, but countries in the OECD world, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, which are the top countries in the world, they really broke the bank, and they've been running deficit since that time. And some of that COVID spending is still reverberating in the system. And so that said, every country does have that kind of problem. But Nigeria is not doing too badly. We could do a lot better, and I believe that the initiatives put in place now would work.
Beyond encouraging fiscal and tax reforms, what other opportunities can the federal government explore to diversify the nation's revenue sources?
So there's one thing about diversifying revenue sources. There's another thing about diversifying the economy itself. A diversified economy itself is a very self-reliant economy, an economy where, from one point to the other, there's dependency. Okay, you say that's an economy where you produce what you eat. Okay, you eat what you produce. You produce what you use, the clothes you wear, the machines needed in your country for your industrialization and all of that. You try to do that. One of the most diversified economies in the world is the United States economy. That's why it's strong. You see that the United States are very, 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 very jealous about other goods from other countries coming into their country, even cars. They will struggle, but at some point in time, they actually allowed the Japanese to bring in Toyotas and Hondas. But if you look at the 2010 global recession, 2010-2011, when the American companies, car makers were having problems, and some of them were going down, the General Motors of this world, Ford, and so on, the American government had to put money back into those countries, into those companies, and in putting money back, those companies were able to hire, even from places like Toyota, people who design cars. So that was, so before then, American cars used to be gas guzzlers. But since then, given the investment the American country put in them, or the government put in them, then they've been able to compete with other companies around the world. So that's one. I think that what's more important is, and the bigger task is, the diversification of the economy. So when you hear the government saying, oh, let's use what we have, let's do what, that's what the government is saying. And the more we're able to do that, that means we keep the money within the family. And that's what, if you see there's a joke that goes around on the internet from time to time, talks about America and how the Jewish community in America ensure that when they collect their salary, it takes 19 days for $1 of their salary to get out of the Jewish community, because they're buying in a Jewish shop, they're going to a Jewish supermarket, they're going to a Jewish-owned whatever, cinema and so on. But some other ethnicities, and maybe they talk about the blacks, it takes 30 minutes for all the money to get to other people. So I think that's the same principle that countries use to say, okay, Nigerian money, how much times does it circulate within Nigeria? rather than we sending them abroad. The more we're able to build that up, the better for us. So that's as far as economic diversification. But the diversification of income of the government is a different kettle of fish, really. And of course, it's what the government has been working on. It's still largely dominated by crude oil, unfortunately, and gas, okay? But we want it to be dominated by other sources of revenue for the country, chiefly to be more efficient in terms of tax collection. And then when we talk about taxes, there are other revenues. So when you talk about taxes, you're talking about rent due to government, rates due to government across the board, whether federal, state, local government. Because if the states and the local government are able to earn more money, they'll be less dependent on federal and the FAC, the Federal Allocation Committee, you know. So that's the thing. So rents, rates, levies, duties, import duties and other duties, you know, fines, fees. So in talking about diversifying revenue, you have to think in terms of every revenue that is due to government, not only taxes. But of course, we also understand that that's why the president set up that committee, that in terms of taxes, we need to be more efficient and we need to ensure that what is due to government actually comes.
With our growing population, is our fiscal policy sufficient or adequate to take care of provision of infrastructure, healthcare, education, and social services, given the growing population and debt profile in the country?
Now, those are two questions. Debt profile is a different ballgame entirely. It depends on which of the profile for debt you're looking at. Some people talk about the country being overborrowed. I don't think so. I think rather than being overborrowed, I think the real issue is that we're not getting enough of our revenues in. And when I talk about revenues, like I said before, it's not only about federal government revenues, it's also about state government revenues and local government revenues. Remember when Governor Wike became the mayor of Abuja, and the next thing is started hearing about ground rent, and everybody knows that he's a tough man. But because of that, the moment he took several pages of the newspaper and started advertising that, look, if all of these people, I'm going to revoke your CFO if you don't pay me my ground rent, people are rushing. If we go to Ages there, people are there, 500 people in the morning trying to pay. Now, you'd wonder why the other ministers of the federal capital did not do this. The money is there. Someone like the chairman of the tax committee, Taiwo Yedede, has this idea that, you know, that even if a state like Lagos can run itself adequately on property alone, don't call it property taxes, you know, just a little bit here and there, you know. I mean, you have all those skyscrapers in Lagos. Who knows who's paying what and how much? So it's all about, so the issue we have is not debt. You see, debt should be used as leverage to grow an economy. Okay, but if you take debt maybe to consume, there's a problem, clearly. If you just say, oh, let's borrow hundreds of billions from God knows where, America, and then we just use it to buy goods, to eat food from America, you made a mistake. But if you take the debt to say, oh, listen, let's use it for our industries so that we can be more sufficient, self-sufficient, minding the fact that, you know, we live in a dog-eat-dog world. And, you know, you don't believe that every country is interested in you, Nigeria, becoming self-sufficient. And, you know, you people can be very proud and you know. So those are all of those, you have to look at all of those psychosocial issues. So, so we really don't have much issues regarding debt, if you ask me. If we're able to, for example, double our revenue, do you know that our debt to GDP ratio, or rather, if we double our revenue, our debt service to revenue ratio would halve immediately. If we double our revenue, our debt service to revenue ratio would be divided by 2. That's a clear thing, you know. So that means that the thing to work on is the revenue. So if you ask me that is the fiscal policy enough, well, it's not quite an appropriate question, you know. Because you don't talk about whether a policy is enough or not. you know. But maybe you're talking about the fiscal drive, if it's enough. So it's a double-edged question. If I was asked that in an exam, I'd write several pages, actually. But the point is that, are you saying that the fiscal revenue, the revenue coming from the fiscal end to fund our budget, is it enough? No, it's not, and we've discussed that. And we're saying that if we can take it to ×2, we'll probably be heading somewhere. A lot of our problems begin to solve. Number two, to say that there's no country in the world, like I said earlier on, that is doing adequately in terms of fiscal policy, in terms of fiscal revenue. That's why the Americans under Donald Trump, they brought a law to say that any American living anywhere in the world and any money, you must pay taxes back home. We don't care whether you are paying taxes where you are living. There's a certain tax that you pay back to America. Nigeria hasn't done that. You know what I'm saying? So now there you now look at the spending aspect, the allocation. You mentioned things like, you know, schools, hospitals, and so on and so forth. Yes, because you're not earning enough, you may not be able to allocate enough. That's clear. But like I said, every country is still working on this. Of course, there's a lot of room for us to improve.
Tax reforms are an integral part of a robust fiscal policy, no doubt. How would you assess our current tax system in the area of revenue generation?
Exactly. What you just said now, not generating enough. President put in this committee as one of the first things he did. They submitted a 30 days report. And we have also realized, well, I happen to be in that committee as well. We've also realized that, look, we don't have to increase tax rates, but, you know, with a bit more diligence, we can double this revenue without increasing tax rate. We saw leakages here and there. The chairman of the committee will tell you that, and there's some clips online where he has also repeated this. Leakages here and there, if you can block those leakages, the revenue will roll in and all of that. So yes, let's see how far that goes. And perhaps we'll be able to even do more than double that he has said. But Nigerians must also be ready to play by the rule of law. If you've done business in Nigeria and you made money, please pay your share. What I see in Nigeria, you see, it's also a gradual thing. There's what is called the Mediterranean culture as against the European culture. Anywhere from Italy, especially the south of Italy, Spain, some parts of Portugal, down into the Mediterranean, into Africa, the culture changes a bit. They are more into family. They are more, they don't really, they are not really on the side of government to pay money to government. They'd rather use money to help their family than to pay taxes. That's what is realized all the way from Europe, not to talk of here in Africa and Nigeria. So many people, when you say, oh, you need to pay your due to government, say, is it the government that built my house for me? Is it the government that did this one? No. In Europe, in Northern Europe, they realized a long time ago that the first charge on your salary is government taxes. You don't even begin to argue with that because they passed through a lot. In those medieval days where if you don't pay taxes to the king, you can tell them to go and behead you. It never really happened here. You remember that in Nigeria also, we fought several wars against taxes. The Aba women riot was about taxes. When they wanted women to start paying taxes, they were like, what do you mean women should start paying taxes? They rioted. A few people died. The white man opened fire on them. Agbekoya War in the southwest in the early 1900s, the same thing. So it's a gradual thing. People, when we are talking about this policy, we also should look at history and say, okay, where are we coming from?
President Tinubu was presented with the quick win report you earlier talked about on fiscal policy and tax reforms from that committee tasked with improving the nation's revenue profile and business environment. Now, what would you say are the main thrust and takeaways of that report?
Of the quick wins?
Yes, sir.
I can see part of the quick wins, they mentioned some things in terms of no VAT on diesel. What they're trying to do is also to use the activity of that committee and the report to try and slow down inflation as much as they can. They talked about withholding taxes, you know, making it easier on working capital. They talked about tax pro-max. They talked about waivers on penalties and interest and so on. They talked about They even talked about monetary policy in terms of foreign exchange. I think the committee recommended that the government should try and bring almost everybody in the foreign exchange space into the official space, and anything that happens outside the official space should be termed illegal, and even anything like parallel market should be taxed, just to discourage people going into that market. So the recommendations are quite many. I think up to 19, 20 of them, and there are quite many. They are across the board. The whole idea is to say, here we are. This is a new Nigeria, renewed hope agenda. We don't intend to tax people much more than they're taxed. No new taxes are coming in. We just want to be efficient, and we want the cooperation of Nigerians, and we can achieve a great nation.
How critical is that report towards Nigeria's economic recovery?
Exactly. The one reason everything is targeted at there. If a report is talking about both fiscal and monetary policy, industrial policy, and all of that, everything is geared towards rejuvenating the economy. And apart from that, from what the president said last Monday, it's clear. The president said, look, we can have 6 new megacities. We can have industrial clusters all over the country in 1 year. I mean, in 10 years. We can have, we can support our agri sector, the issue of commodity exchanges and commodity boards coming back to ensure that our farmers are able to get more value for what they produce. The president reviewed the 3 trillion target of 10 years to 4 trillion. He reviewed the 1 trillion economic target from 2027 to 2026. He probably just gave a marching order to everybody. And of course, this committee it has a direct line of sight to the president, reports straight to the president. And of course, immediately they reported to the president has signed executive orders, around those to ensure that. And of course, he also gave Mrs. Bala Usman Adiza the marching orders to ensure that all of the agreements, all of the resolutions of that committee are effected as soon as possible. So we expect that to be able to see the effect in a jiffy.
Let's talk about the implementation of the recommendations of this committee. Who are those concerned with the implementation, and how can we ensure these implementations are carried out diligently?
There's nothing better to do than to follow the president's executive orders and marching orders. I don't think there's anybody in Nigeria today who can go against the president's orders to that effect. And if that's been done, then we expect all of those. And I believe that, the president has a private sector mindset. And he has run Lagos State and done well in Lagos State. And he has very bright people around him. So from time to time, a review will be done to know, if we are running at the run rate that we promised and why we're not doing that. At that point in time, we will want to know who is in charge of what, why are we not achieving what we promised we will. And of course, I believe that with that kind of mindset, yes, we begin to see serious changes. And mind you, there's also been the humanitarian ministry. They've also got the presidential approval to start some sort of disbursements to very underprivileged people around the country. I think 25,000 to 15 million households. Some people have said, it's a waste or something like that. However, we should also consider the fact that if indeed we have a scientific way of ensuring that that money gets into the hands of those very poor families, it's going to help them a lot. Because the president is concerned that, look, we need to begin to do something immediately, given the very tough decisions that the president has made in the beginning. And if you look at the removal of fuel subsidies, what it's meant to do is to ensure that the nation's revenue actually comes to the nation for use. Before, we used to have a scenario where if the mainstay of the country, crude oil, when the country sells crude oil, the gains are used to purchase fuel and then disappears like that. And the new government believes that, look, we can't continue around like that. If we are selling crude oil, we should be able to use our gains not only to give people more fuel or cheaper fuel, but to be able to use the gains to intervene in industries, intervene in power, intervene in health, in schools, and what have you. So what you should expect is a much more active government. And I think these are just the teething stages. We're going to be soon hitting the highway. And, you know, yeah, I believe that we're going to be growing at a very fast pace.
Now let's examine our tax laws, voluntary compliance, and our tax base. Do you align with a review of further reforms in these areas as suggested by the President?
No, there's no perfect policy, and there are no perfect tax laws. And, you know, the whole idea of voluntary compliance is to say, like it is done elsewhere, that's in America, you know, the government sends you the tax form. You yourself will feel how much you've earned. Even if you are a plumber, or, you know, work on your own, you feel how much you spend, you earned, and you say, okay, calculate it yourself, or this is the taxes I'm meant to pay. And with your own hand, you will write your check or go to the bank and pay or whatever. That's the way it's done, okay? That presupposes that you must be able to tell the truth, number one. Number two, the reason why they've gone far in those countries with voluntary compliance is because they've also singled out some people who falsify their tax returns, and they've been very, very harsh on them. They jail them. In America, they take delight in doing that. So that means that it's not just about telling our people, we're going somewhere with this. And people should expect that if they're given that latitude to feel with their own hands what they're supposed to pay, it's not because the government is foolish. In time, you will see that a few people will be disciplined in that regard, you know. So it's both ways that we have to balance out, you know. So whatever reform can be done to make it easier, yes, I think I saw a reform by the FRS saying that people can assess themselves voluntarily, but they can now pay their taxes in bits. They can pay it part payment. Before, it used to be that once you get on the tax pro system and you assess yourself, there's only one lump sum payment. So whether you have the cash to pay or not is not in consideration. But now the new reform says that you should be able to do that and pay in bits, because it's not every time that someone will have all the cash flow to pay everything. So whatever reform, so long as it makes it easier for taxpayers to pay, so long as it makes it easier for government to get its due, then so be it.
We shall bring you the concluding part of that interview in our next episode. Stay with us.
It's new, it's fresh. It's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV Channel 419, GoTV Channel 26, Star Times Channels 101 and 433, and Free TV Channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
You see, actually, all other sectors are working, be it private, non-governmental, and governmental sectors. They are actually working, but just the economy itself has changed. A lot of things have changed, and the current reality is the hike in prices of things, food stop, electricity bills, you know, then, excuse me, the average man can hardly eat 3 square meals a day. So what are we talking about? What are we actually saying? The current realities are there. They will not change over time. But I think what Nigerians or or the government should do is to provide more job opportunities for individuals. Like most of our youth, they are creative. Let there be an industry for creativity in art, in self development, self independence, where individuals can come out of their comfort zone and give their best. And in doing so, the revenue generation, even in the income, will increase. We have long depend on oil, and each year Nigerians institutions, high institutions, are producing graduates, but where is the job? Where are all the jobs? You see, like the organization I represent, 21st Century CEO, we empower virtually all set category of people, whether you're working class or not. We empower you through our structure and a system. Yes.
Do you think agriculture will be a good source of revenue for the government?
Agriculture has actually been doing well. It has actually boosted the economy of this country, generate revenue, but I think there's more. There's more to agriculture. There's sustainable farming. Women are actually venturing into farming these days. But how many of those women that are there in their comfort zones that have accessibility to this agriculture we are talking about? For this empowerment through agriculture we're talking about, women can actually farm in bags, in large quantities. Women can grow cassava, even yam, Irish potatoes, in what? In their bags. But if there's no resources, they have the what? They have the manpower, but if the resources is not there, what would they do?
Talking about inflation, you made mention of inflation.
I did.
What do you think the government should be doing in order to boost the strength of the naira? There is a huge gap between the naira and the dollar, which is by extension causing a hike in the prices of commodities in the market. What strategies do you think the government should be doing in order to address this challenge?
I think the government should borrow from other developed countries like China, India, Europe, UK. What are the modalities? What are those strategies they put in place? And they're able to overcome and have a sustainable economy. I think that's what Nigerians should do. They should employ experts rather than borrowing.
It's not a favorable policy. It's affecting a lot of things in this country. If you see, the production in this country have reduced drastically because of all these multiple taxations. So I believe that I heard some, is it last week or 2 weeks back, the federal government they're talking something about it. So we're just waiting for their own policies to see where they're going to change it. Economies of the country. If you see, the economy of the country it's a little bit, it's affecting the production and affecting the industry in this country. So most of the production they only go to Ghana to go and make production because of these taxations. So you buy something, there's tax, everything is tax. So there's a certain things in this country the federal government is supposed to remove tax on it. With the coming of the new governor of the central bank, I saw some policies that is bringing up. I believe that if you continue the way it's going, we are going to have the currency will appreciate. So let's just wait for them patiently and see what they have for us.
Which I'm sure and aware of as a Nigerian, you pay tax. What do you think about multiple taxation?
Multiple taxation is not a good method of paying tax, and irregularities even in the amount of tax. Like for example, you can see the tax agencies, there are very, very many doing the same thing. That one alone has caused what we call high cost of governance, because there are so many of these agencies that are responsible with collecting tax, and they are doing the same thing. Local government, you go and see, like for example, if you have a shop in this Jos, local government can come to your place. Just not local government can come to your shop. Revenue house can come to your shop that they need tax. So let us have a central channel.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV.
guest is Brigadier General Sylvester Oloyede MNI, who is the doyen of the directing staff at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. So it's good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you very much, China.
If I may ask, can you tell us how was your background in the military and how did you rise through the ranks?
Like you are taking me back through memory lane now. To become an officer and rise to the rank of Brigadier General is no small feat. As usual, before you can be an officer, you have to go through the Nigerian Defense Academy, 5 years of rigorous combat training. I'm a regular combatant officer. I'm a member of regular course 39, the Nigerian Defense Academy, and I was commissioned into the Corps of Infantry. And as an infantry officer, just 5 days old after commissioning, I found myself in the jaws of ECOMOG. So the baptism of fire toughened us, and thank God for the training we received at NDA. And we rose via promotions, we wrote promotion exams, which we must pass, courses at the tactical, operational, and strategic levels, which you will not just pass, but you must pass very well with good grades. And having been a veteran of many operations, like I said, the 2 ECOMOG operations in Liberia and Sierra Leone, that's Operation Liberty, Operation Tiger Tail, and other operations like the Bakassi Peninsula, Operation Harmony, and a few others, including other internal security operations within the country. So let's say that's just about the experience so far. In a nutshell, it's quite more than that, but that will save us the history.
Very, very interesting to hear your history and your background in the military. So can we know how was your experience when you were a participant at the National Institute?
Thanks once again for that question. I came in as a raw infantry officer. Throughout my career, I've always done whatever I did in the army. You can imagine, as a young man in my early 20s, it's around 21 was when I was commissioned, and all my interactions have always been within the army. And even when we went for foreign courses, we interacted with the armies of those countries. And experience in United Nations operations too. We operated within the military components of the UN and also AU. But yes, we had our CIMIC experiences in combat and training, but it's not what you can compare with living and working with civilians, especially as a colonel. So it was a new experience for me. I came in here and the background was different. People came from different backgrounds and we were made to work together. In the course of working together, we learned new things, new experiences came, and it's really broadened and enhanced my understanding of civil-military cooperation. And it also helped me because when I left NIPSS, a member of Sec 39, and I was chairman of Study Group 3, first term, and I learned that man management in the military is different from man management in the civil society. So I learned how to work with civilians. I learned how to do a lot of many things apart from the military way of doing them. And it really helped a lot. It really polished my understanding of the civil society.
Okay, if I may ask, how has this experience imparted on your person and your career?
Coincidentally, after leaving this institute, I was posted to Army Headquarters, Department of Civil Military Affairs, where I functioned very well. You know, it was like coming fresh from the manufacturers. It was a new me. And I was the Deputy Director, Civil Military Liaison. So it's helped me a lot in the course of my work, liaising with MDAs and organizations, NGOs, you know, and having understood the civilian psyche, it made the work very easy, and by extension, it helped the Nigerian Army, you know, to have a very robust civil-military cooperation, civil-military relations, as well as we performed very well. We performed very well, and I owe my performance, very good performance, I would say, without meaning to praise myself, to the experience I gained in NIPSS.
So can you tell us, what advice would you give to youths out there?
For anything you are capable of thinking about, it is possible for you to achieve them. Like they say, what's perceivable is achievable. You don't just make a wish and just sit down there. A dream remains a dream if it is not followed up by actions. All I can advise the youth there, have your dream. Only a dead person has no dreams. Follow your dream with passion. Be determined. And leave the rest to God.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time you've given us to have this personal chat with you.
Thank you so much too.
So this is the Much We Can Take on Alumni Chat. We'll join the program for more. Stay with us. I am Chana Ejoga.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV channel 419, GoTV channel 26, Star Times channels 101 and 433, and Free TV channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
Now, concerns regarding the introduction of the federal policy on taxation for 2023 in Nigeria. Concerns like policy inconsistency on how green taxes will be enforced and little impact assessment on the policy's effects. In addition, the fiscal policy measure for 2022 is still in the implementation phase. However, the fiscal policy measure FPM 2023 is expected to have a positive impact on the Nigerian economy, such as revenue generation for the government, promotion of local production and manufacturing, mitigation of climate change, and greater employment opportunities. The effectiveness of these new taxes in achieving these objectives is dependent on some essential factors such as the effective implementation of the new taxes and the efficient use of the additional revenue generated. Don't forget to join us for the concluding part of the conversation with the Special Advisor on Economics in the Office of the Vice President, Dr. Tokwe Fashoa. Do watch out for it. Thank you for watching always. I am Lydia Odijochi. See you next time.